Education tech in the very beginning of its conceptualization was a focus on actual technologies. So, in terms of discussing what the classroom used to enhance education, it was the projectors, the laptops, the desktops, and the smart screens. So there was that age where it was all about the actual tech, the actual little gadgety elements. When we talk about EdTech, we're talking about the digital content. The way Digital Springboard approaches EdTech is the digital content. The digital content is now leading towards the pupils' engagement with the education concepts at home, in the extra time, supplementary lessons, support for parents with the learners. In the first world dynamic, the concept of EdTech was all supportive. It was in support of a primary teacher lesson taking place and an add-on through EdTech, which is wonderful when you have the resources and you have the environment, and all of that adds up to two potential opportunities for a learner to engage with the content. However, in the African construct, we need to do the needs analysis again, because African communities are challenged with so much more. Our parents don't have the basic 12 years of education to support learners in this new dynamic. So not only do you have the challenge of the resources, but the parent struggles. And the parent cannot take over the home engagement. And a lot of our South African schools, we have to be honest, have taken away the concept of homework, because not only is the parent unable to support the learner, but now you've got a situation where the actual learner themselves in their dynamic, in the community environment, does not have the time to engage with after-school homework. Not for lack of resources, but mostly for lack of time. When we talk about resources, we're talking about the pen and paper, because that is all they have. But the time as well is now the construct that one cannot get after hours for a learner. Because when our African learner goes home, when our children go home, they have household chores. Many of them are babysitters for toddlers. Most of them are their own housekeepers. They are cooking, they are cleaning, they're supporting mom and dad. Mom and dad are coming home at 8 p.m. So as a result, the oldest child is now cooking, cleaning, supporting siblings before completing the homework lesson. So what happens is even a child that is heavily invested in their own commitment to getting an education is exhausted and will fail just the general assignment of homework, not for lack of effort, but because there's only so much a young person can do. Going forward, what's the needs analysis that needs to be considered before you produce EdTech materials for African communities? One of the primary constructs that we have to engage with are the resources. As much as we struggle and, cringe and push and shove against one another, it is important to understand what we don't have. The baseline of it is an African home cannot afford to put 2,000 to 3,000 rand into data technologies and support elements for one learner. Now you multiply that by the average construct that most African homes have 3 to 4 children at home in different grades and different spaces with different needs. Already that cost is astronomical. Let's go forward. What is it that can be done? We can supply the content to the classroom. We can use the ratio of 1 to many in the classroom to give our children access, an understanding of the changing dynamics of the world that they're living in. Let them see, let them engage. It's not always going to result in an exponential element of outcomes in the learning construct immediately. That will take time. So be moderate in the expectation and engage with the learners, because they need to know that there is more out there. Let me quantify this statement. When our children leave school in grade 12 and want to go to higher education, from FET to universities to just the basic home learning, maybe with UNISA, All of these elements and these constructs require them to understand how to use digital technologies. Not a digital edtech solution, but digital technologies. We have children that leave matric without being able to type a letter. Why? This is where access becomes critical. Access is so important. We're not going to get our learners to pop up their marks 15 to 10% year on year just by giving them access. We're just giving them a fighting chance not to be overwhelmed by the nature of the world after grade 12, after they're outside of their comfort zone, after they've passed their childhood years and become adults and are challenged every day by other adults about what they don't know. So exposure should not be immediately equated to academic competence, but exposure will decrease the anxiety in our communities, and it will give our children a little bit more confidence to try a little bit more. What can we engage with all of these constructs? Allow the children to have the opportunity to engage with all the technologies and moderate expectations.